I want to start this talk by challenging two common misconceptions that bedevil our thinking about teaching in higher education. Foremost is the assumption that teaching is easy. Anyone can do it. If you are a great researcher, you will simply be able to step into a classroom and be a great teacher. It will be the least demanding part of your academic life. Maybe just a little bit tedious after a while because it is so easy. Come on. There is no one amongst us who has not had the experience as a student of seeing quite how dreadful university teaching can be, and how rare the occasion of seeing skilled teaching in action. Okay, maybe that's an easy one to brush off, but I reckon it is still prevalent in our institutions. The second misconception is more troubling. If we assume that there is such a thing as good teaching, then it is easy to move quickly to posit a direct, linear, causal relationship between teaching and learning. There is no teacher who cares who does not have this assumption bashed every time they sit down to mark a test or exam. I taught it so well. How can they not have learnt it? Let's then return to a more modest discussion that focuses on teaching and what it can achieve. I'm sorry, but there are no silver bullets in education. Teaching is a complex activity, sapping of energy and creativity, and the learning outcomes are never assured. But we need not despair. We know that good teaching does make a difference. It makes learning more likely to happen, and it can inspire young people to start to become something in their lives. Although there is no simple cause and effect relationship between teaching and learning, good teaching is totally focused on learning. Learning is this extraordinary process where an individual person takes on knowledge and makes it their own, something they hold and with which they can work. If you want to help that process to happen, then you are part of trying to bring together both the learner and the knowledge. Teaching that is only focused on the knowledge will have a limited impact, especially in a context where you have learners who are still developing their ways of learning. Teaching that is only focused on the learner will involve people in busy activities that might even make them feel good, but no real knowledge will be taken on board. We need to recognize, though, that teaching is only a part of what academics are required to do. Academic life is a busy job with many different parts that need to be juggled, predominantly teaching, research, and administration. While we are on a roll, let's disabuse ourselves of another notion, the view that somehow we are in the future going to get more resources with which to accomplish our work in universities. We are not. This is true pretty much everywhere in the world. We are most probably going to have to do more with less. So we need to get really smart. The way most of us currently allocate time is not always that smart. So you are going to have limited time to spend on your teaching. What should you prioritize? I have identified 5 things that are top priorities for me. And I have to confess right away that producing beautiful PowerPoint slides is not one of them. My first priority centers on the knowledge. And in the context of teaching in the sciences, for me, the focus on conceptual understanding is crucial. The lecture serves to open up the subject, to create a conceptual map, and to establish the major signposts. You have to go into a lecture knowing the few big ideas that you are planning to tackle in that session. Here, of course, Your own clear understanding of the subject is non-negotiable. But to that, you also need to add some sense of where students are likely to trip up. Unfortunately, schooling tends to encourage the development of high-end memorization skills. These are of limited use in the learning of science and engineering knowledge. I try to do everything I can to signal this point. Significantly, I allow students to bring into a test one A4 page on which they can write anything they like. Given what we are usually testing in our courses, I find students don't really need this crib sheet. But significantly, it can reduce some of the exam nerves. And most importantly, it demonstrates to students that I will not be asking them much that requires simple recall. My second priority is to work hard to be able to accommodate as wide a range as possible of student educational backgrounds in the class. No one said this would be easy, but it is the central challenge for university lecturers today. You are not a good teacher because you can engage a homogeneous group who all came from highly resourced school and family backgrounds. You are a good teacher because you can, of course, engage this typically minority portion of your class, as well as the majority for whom life is not so ideal. A key challenge here is in building an integrated classroom community. If students feel isolated and marginalized, if they feel that they don't deserve to be there, then learning is not going to happen. One thing that I have been working on a lot in the last while are innovations that give extra time on task for those students who need it. Noting that you as a teacher do not necessarily have extra time to give. A first complete no-brainer is to do lecture casting. Here, students have an opportunity to go through parts of the lecture again where they didn't fully grasp everything the first time it all happened. We have clear evidence that this is making a significant difference for students who struggle in the course. This year, we kicked off with another innovation in our first year. Here, students who have performed poorly in the first semester came back on campus for 3 weeks during the vacation for intensive work with a top postgraduate tutor. This was extremely well received by students, and we are watching the impact as we go forward in the course. My third priority might surprise some. I make a tremendous effort to get to know student names. I teach classes, typically in the order of 130 students, and I find that over the semester, I can pretty much get most names under my belt. I'm not good at names, but I simply make this a priority. I do have a few tricks though. In the first 2 weeks of lectures, students come in small groups to have a lunchtime cool drink with me and to tell me something about themselves. I find that knowing something about a student, he's the guy from Kimberley who said he's enjoying the big city, helps me to remember a name. I require students to introduce themselves when they participate in class. This also helps other students to get to know names. If you want to totally shift the way your students experience your teaching, then put effort into names. It is a very radical thing on a university campus for a lecturer to greet a student by name. I have only taught classes up to 150, so I do accept that for those of you with bigger classes, this might be a huge challenge. But the evidence is that many of us teach 150 or fewer students in our classes. My final two priorities center on intellectual challenge. I believe the intellectual challenge has to start in the lecture theatre. So I am not into passive transmission-style lectures. I ask students questions. I get them to try out small parts of problems. I get them to discuss things in small groups. This relates to my final priority, which is to set clear deliverables and to have high expectations. I expect my students to work hard and to deliver top quality work. I require students to drop me a note if they have to miss a class session. This is to develop a facility in communicating with me as a lecturer and a confident professional attitude. I mark hard. I set challenging tests. I run projects that are complex and open-ended. I ask probing questions when students do their project oral presentations. But I also always praise when I see outcomes that are looking good. I tell the class when I am impressed to see from the website traffic that there was hard work happening in preparation for the test. I tell them when I like what I'm seeing in the project reports. I also tell them where the next set of challenges will lie and where they need to put in more effort. This is not an easy job. This is not a job with a straightforward set of techniques. But it is the best job. There is nothing else I would rather be doing with my life. It is a huge privilege to work with these young people and watch the transformation as they learn and grow.